Today we're going to be looking at introduction to motion. So first we're going to define motion, and then we're going to see about position time graph, velocity time graph, distance, displacement, and so on. So motion is defined as the change in position of an object over time relative to a reference point. Position, distance, and displacement. So what are these three things? Position, it's the specific location of an object relative to a chosen reference point or origin. It defines where an object is at any given moment. So a position tells you where something is, but to tell you where, you always need a starting point called a reference point. So what is position? Position is your location compared to a known spot, which is a reference point or your origin. So what is distance? Distance is the total length of a path traveled by an object, regardless of its direction. It's a scalar quantity. That means if it's scalar, it only has magnitude, no directions. Displacement, the straight line change in an object's position from its initial point to its final point. And it's a vector quantity. That means it has magnitude and direction. So what's the difference between distance and displacement? Distance, as mentioned here, it's the total length of the path traveled by any object. That means if I travel from my home and then to the shop and then to my friend's house, the distance is the whole path traveled. But if I want the displacement, I just need to measure from my home directly to my friend's house. I don't need to measure every detail of the journey. That's the difference between them. Displacement is the shortest path to your destination or your final point, but distance is the whole length, the total length of the path that you traveled. What is scalar and what is vector? So scalar quantities, these are, the type of quantities that is only magnitudes. It only has magnitudes. For example, distance is a scalar quantity, which means it doesn't need direction to be described. You can only describe it by magnitudes like 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers, 70, 80, 100 kilometers. That's how you define distance. The same as speed, time, mass, temperature, energy. What about vector quantity? Vector quantity, they need a direction. Magnitude is not enough to describe them. You need a magnitude and a direction. For example, displacement, velocity, acceleration. These are vector quantities. That means they need direction. For example, displacement, you know, 5 kilometers to the north or 20 kilometers to the east. That's how you keep them. The next is speed, average speed, velocity, and average velocity. So what is speed? Speed is a rate at which distance is covered. So speed is equals to distance over time, like 20 kilometers per hour. That's how it's kept. And average speed is the total distance divided by total time taken. So total distance over total time. Let's say I traveled two places. One, it took me 2 kilometers, the other took me 5 kilometers. I add them both up with the total distance. And let's say the first one took me 2 minutes and the other one took me 3 minutes. I add them down in the total time section. And that's how I get my average speed. And velocity is speed with direction. So the difference between speed and velocity is speed is just the rate at which distance is covered, while velocity is the rate at which distance is covered with direction. And average velocity is total displacement over total time. What's acceleration? Acceleration is a change, or it's a rate of change of velocity. So what's acceleration? It's change of velocity over change of time. What about uniform motion? Uniform motion, it's a constant velocity when there's no any change in the velocity when the acceleration is zero. When the acceleration equals zero, that time the motion is uniform. What's graphical representation? There are two types of graphical representations: the position time graph and the velocity time graph. So a position time graph shows an object's location over time. Its slope indicates velocity. So let's focus here. An upward slope signifies positive velocity. That means if the graph shows you an upward slope, it is a positive velocity. That means the speed is increasing. And a flat line means the object is at rest. That means the speed is constant, or there is no acceleration. The acceleration is zero at this moment. But when it's downward slope, when the graph shows a downward slope, that means the velocity it's showing a negative velocity. That means the speed is just decreasing. And let's go to the other one, which is velocity time graph. So a velocity time graph plots an object's velocity over time. So the slope of this graph indicates acceleration. That one, the position time graph, indicates velocity, but this one, the velocity time graph, indicates an acceleration. So a horizontal line, you see the horizontal line signifies constant velocity or zero acceleration. The position time graph is the same as well, but it's constant velocity. Here it's zero acceleration. And an upward slope in the velocity time graph shows positive acceleration. That means if it's facing upward, if it's going upward, it's positive acceleration. So the change of velocity is increasing. And a downward slope indicates negative acceleration. That means the change of velocity is going down. The area under the curve represents displacement. Now, let's answer some of these questions here. Question number one says, a car travels 50 meters north, then 30 meters south. What is its total distance and displacement? So, as we said, distance is the total journey covered. That means we just have to add both of them, 50 plus 30, that gives us 80. And the displacement is the shortest way to the path, and the answer is 20 because you just subtract it. See, the displacement, you just subtract 50 minus 30, you get 20. And the second question, what does a horizontal line on a position time graph indicate about an object's motion? So the object is at rest, or the object is not moving. It says here, in a position time graph, if it's horizontal, what does it represent? And we saw in the definition that the object is at rest or it's not moving. That means, let's go back here. See, a flat line means the object is at rest. Flat line means, it's a horizontal. So the third question is, if an object's velocity changes from 10 meter per second to 25 meter per second in 3 seconds, what is its acceleration? So the question is asking us to find the acceleration. We're given two speeds or two velocity here and a time. So what's the difference between those two, between 10 kilometers to 25? It says the velocity changed from 10 meter per second to 25 meter per second in 3 seconds. So first we have to identify what's the formula for the acceleration. Acceleration is equals to change of velocity divided by change of time. So that means 25 minus 10. See here, 25 minus 10 divided by 3 seconds. That is 15 meter per second divided by 3 seconds, giving us 5 meter per second squared. And the fourth question, what's the primary difference between speed and velocity? So speed, it's a rate of which distance is covered. We know that, but it's also a scalar quantity. That means it only needs magnitude It doesn't need direction. On the other hand, velocity is a vector quantity. It needs direction. It's speed, but with direction. That's the difference. So speed is a scalar quantity, which means only magnitude, but velocity is a vector quantity with magnitude and direction. On a velocity time graph, what does an upward sloping line represent? So we're talking about the second one, the velocity time graph. It says, what does the upward sloping line represent? So as we saw in the definition earlier, it represents a constant positive acceleration. That means the rate of change of the velocity when it is showing upwards, the rate of change of velocity is positive. So it's increasing. And for the next one, we just want to recall what is a Pythagorean theorem, because when you talk about displacement in the questions, we just subtracted and added distance. To find distance, we added them. To find displacement, we subtracted. But in displacement, we only subtract when it's on one line. That means when it says north and south or east and west. What if it says 10 kilometers to the north and 4 kilometers to the east? So to find the displacement in this type of questions, you're not only going to subtract, you're going to use Pythagorean theorem. So this is the formula: a squared plus b squared is equals to c squared. So what is a squared? A squared and b squared are the two distance given. For example, if the question says I went 10 kilometers to north and 5 kilometers to west, so this 10 kilometer and 4 kilometer is considered distance, which you're gonna put in the place of a squared and b squared. And c squared is gonna be your answer or your displacement. And that's all for today. Thank you.